welcome to another episode of the Mindset Rx series of the Alpha Movement podcast. Today on the show, I'm interviewing the highest placing rookie ever at the CrossFit Games, Brent Fikowski, who is currently prepping for regionals. I know I say this most episodes, but geez, Brent crushed this one. Big topics we include, but in no way limited to pressing a mental reset button to maintain focus, entering the flow state, controlling the controllable and the uncontrollable, how Brent approaches different styles of WODs, books he lives and dies by, experiencing hardship and embracing hardship, and how to win the CrossFit Games. Pretty cool subjects. For those of you who don't know, these podcast episodes are all prep for my book, Mindset Rx'd, which will be published in the next 18 months. I'm saying it will happen, it's going to happen. It's a how-to guide for CrossFit athletes, functional athletes to master the inner athlete. And don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave a 5-star review whilst you're there. Now, I bring you Brent Fikowski. So at this point, man, I'd just like to say welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, had a good evening last night, went for a float, and woke up pretty early this morning with the sun, and ready to attack a big day, and I got a big weekend ahead of me, so yeah, feeling good.
Nice. That's like two huge subjects straight away that I wasn't planning on talking about. How'd you get in floating?
How did I? I'm not really sure. I think a float tank, float space in Kelowna here opened up pretty close to our gym, and I think I just went to check it out. I don't really remember. And then turns out, I went one or two times and started talking with the owner. And we realized we knew each other. We used to play volleyball against each other in high school. I kind of recognized him and couldn't really put my finger on where. And so he kind of knew a few people I knew, and we probably played against each other maybe 3 or 4 times. Never probably exchanged words, but played against each other. And yeah, we've been pretty good friends ever since. And I go, I'd say regularly. That fluctuates. I try to make it I think an ideal situation, it'd be nice to go like once a week. I probably on average go every maybe twice a month, maybe. But that fluctuates depending on how busy I am.
Yeah, of course. Are you using it for a particular purpose? Are you using it for kind of just time to chill out, or are you using it for visualization purposes? Or?
A little bit of everything. It sort of depends on the time of year. Definitely this time of year, I've got a big competition coming up. So I do try to visualize in there and just really take state of where I am mentally, so that when I go into competition, I'm in a mental state that I want to be in, which is one of happiness and relaxation and confidence. But while I'm in there around this time of year, I try to spend some time visualizing the events I'm going to do. So everything from how I'm going to warm up to how I'm going to enter the competition floor, and then how I'm going to break everything up, and just sort of visualize it. So by the time I go up there, hopefully I can be very comfortable with what to expect. And then if something new does happen, I have this sort of this space in my brain to react to that accordingly, because everything else is sort of going to plan. And I'm just very, very ready and comfortable.
So like the people that I deal with, whether they're CrossFit athletes at like a national or a region, like a local level or a higher level, we use visualization in different methods or different ways. And sometimes we work on like what could go wrong and how to kind of overcome it. And a lot of the time though, it's reingraining or reinforcing the perfect outcome. Which side of that do you fall on, or is it a kind of a mixture of both?
I'd say a bit of both. For preparing for regionals, the variables are a lot lower. So I mostly just focus on the perfect outcome, focus on exactly, my strategy, exactly how I want to, pace things, break things up. And that's what I spend most of my time on. I find that if I can go into a weekend, with every event sort of planned out with a good plan, something I'm like, I know front to back, but then also go in with like a very open mindset just in general, then if something does come up, I can usually handle it. On the flip side, going into the CrossFit Games, I did do quite a bit of mental visualization on all the things that might go wrong and how I would handle those, because, you're going into a 5-day event with no idea really what you're doing. It was a brand new venue for me. I was competing against people I'd never competed against in a different city. There's just all these things that were going to be unfamiliar for me. And it turned out to be a pretty crazy weekend. Like the first day on Tuesday, they said, all right, we'll see you back here at, I think it was like 3 a.m. So we had like a really short night's sleep. Then they put us on a plane and we went, took an hour plane ride to this other location where we did this like trail run. And so it was very unexpected, a lot of variables. I didn't have all the food I'd prepared and all the, I'm like, my fiance wasn't there and all these people weren't there that I was kind of expecting to be with me. So, I had sort of planned for maybe not that specific situation, but maybe situations that were even less favorable than that. So to be sort of have gone through in my mind that I could be ready for anything was a part of my preparation.
Yeah. I heard you talking about the ranch run actually. And like, I remember watching it just going, that looks fucking horrendous. I watched it and like, that was a brutal test. And I was watching a video a couple of days ago of you talking about it and getting to that point where you thought, right, if it finished now, I'd be done. And then you gave that bit more. At that point, what was going through your mind? Do you remember?
Man, that was rough. So for anyone listening that didn't know, basically the very first event of the CrossFit Games was a 7-kilometer trail run. And it was very much a trail. There was gradients of 45 degrees up, 45 degrees down. You were kind of walking on some rocks and kind of like along a stream and like just, gravel road, all these different terrain. And then there was 80 people on the course in total, 40 men and 40 women all racing. First event of the games too. So like a lot of adrenaline leading up to that. And so I was able to, within about the first, I'd say kilometer, I'd moved myself into third place. And I was able to keep that position till the very end. But like you said, about halfway through, about 3 kilometers in, my heart rate and my breathing rate were pretty high. And it was hot. And I remember kind of feeling like, man, if this was the finish line, like right in front of me, and I just kind of sprinted to the finish, I'd be fine. Like, I'd be like, nice effort, Brent. You did great. That was good. And I was able to maintain a pretty similar pace because I kept third. So no one behind me was able to catch me. And it was really, really tough. You just kind of kept going deeper and deeper. And I just focused on my breathing and tried to focus on my running technique and just sort of, all right, get to that point and get to that point. And you just kind of kept pushing. And by the end, I was in a pretty rough state. I was a little delirious and I couldn't really function. I was trying to put some ice in like a towel and put it on my neck, and I just like couldn't really do it. And I was trying to eat, and I can usually eat right after an event, no problem. And I was just having trouble like opening up the packaging, and it was pretty scary after that. But I just kind of kept focusing on the next little hurdle, and before you know it, time just passes, and then you're there at the finish line.
So micro goals then is probably the best way of putting that.
Yeah. I don't know if I know. I'll paraphrase this, but I remember hearing some story about some wounded soldier, and I'm not comparing my performance at all to that. But I think he had to crawl out of some situation, and he just kept looking 2 feet in front of him. He's like, well, his legs were broken or something, and he had to crawl. And so he said, well, I'm just gonna make it to that tree, and I'm just gonna make it to that tree. And I think he covered like a really long distance, farther than you would think would be possible to crawl, not to mention after being in battle. But so definitely not to that extent, but the same sort of mindset where, I just focused on my breathing, I focused on my technique, and just sort of focused on the obstacles that were in front of me. Okay, just climb that hill and, maybe maneuver up that way, and just sort of small goals instead of thinking like, I can't do this for another 3 kilometers because I probably couldn't if I was thinking that way.
Yeah, of course. And then do you mind kind of explaining how the rest of the games unfolded for you and the like what happened from that point, please?
Yeah. So, at that point I had to go I went to the medic tent, and they helped me cool down a bit and gave me some food, and got like a couple blisters on my feet looked after. And at that point I was pretty scared that I might not be able to compete. Not too many people know that because as you'll see here, as I explain, it didn't really play into the rest of the weekend too much. But the next event we had to do was pretty much immediately after was a 1 rep max deadlift. So, you went out there and you deadlifted, it was 440 pounds, and then 450, and then 460. And it kept going up until you couldn't do it anymore, 30 seconds at each bar. And I got to a point back in the tent where I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this. And then as I recovered a little better, I was like, okay, Brent, worst case scenario, you go out there, you can deadlift 440 ice cold. It'll hurt. You'll do it. And then you can just say thank you and just leave and then go back to the medic tent. So once that happened, I kind of had this feeling of, okay, Brent, like your weekend's not over. You can go out there and you'll be able to do that. I could feel that I had that in me. And then, yeah, sure enough, magic of recovery and what the body's capable of, I kind of went back and I had a little bit of time to warm up, and usually my warm up's pretty thorough. I didn't really have the time for that. So I kind of put on my belt, tightened it up, and deadlifted like, I think it was 200, 300, and 380. And I was like, all right, let's go hit 440. And I ended up, yeah, just like that. It's like, what have I been doing all this time warming up for so long? And I ended up tying my PR at 485 after all that, which was pretty exciting. And then, and yeah, the rest of the weekend went well. Then we had a couple hour break and had this like sprint up the hill with a sandbag type thing. I was able to win that event, and I was sitting, I think, in like 5th place overall after those 3 put together. And then, yeah, the weekend went well. I mean, I was still obviously pretty fatigued and pretty sore all weekend, as was everyone though. And ended up finishing 4th overall, which was really cool, really good performance for a rookie, having never been there. I won 4 events, which is, I think, a record for the most wins for a rookie. And then, I had 4 event wins, but I obviously had a few events like the deadlift that, I was in the bottom of the pack. So that's kind of what leveled me out. And, yeah, it was a great weekend. I mean, I achieved kind of what I wanted to, which was just to go in there and prove what I was capable of and enjoy the experience and, try and kick some ass. And yeah, that was pretty much, I mean, in a nutshell, it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of cool events, and, it was really hard I think it was, Friday afternoon, I was saying to someone like, man, I've never been this tired leading into a competition, because we still had 2.5 full days left. I'm like, man, I am sore and I am tired. But then by Sunday morning, you're like, it's almost over. Because it is really cool, and it's cool to see what you're capable of even when you're that sore and tired. And I'll just remind myself of that next year. Hopefully I'll make it again next year, this year I should say, and remind myself that no matter how sore you are, so is everyone else, and you can always get the work done.
Yeah, it was great to see, actually, coming from someone on a very outsider's point of view, watching someone, like watching you come from someone that I didn't really know as an athlete, and seeing you come to finish in 4th place was great. But I was wondering how that felt, actually, like doing probably better than most people expected you to do. How was that?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I went in with the mentality, I felt like I had a bit of hype as a rookie, having just missed out a couple years in a row. And I think I knew, and I think a lot of people knew, that I was good at the long events, that I was good at running, that I was a former swimmer, that I was, kind of athletic. So if there was something a little strange in the mix, that I'd be able to figure it out, which I did in the strange events. Those are kind of the ones that I actually won and placed well in. So I felt like I had a little bit of rookie hype. And I just sort of tried to believe it a little bit, I was like, hey, maybe they're right. Maybe all this work you've been putting in, you've been just knocking on the door, but now that you're there, you're going to kick it down. And, so I went in knowing that it could kind of go one of 2 ways. That one, it might go how it went, which was placing really high and being in the mix of the top guys. And the other one might be that, I might be in one of the lower heats and just kind of be cruising through and not have a really memorable performance. But I was just sort of willing and ready for either, and didn't want to be surprised if I was at the top, but also didn't want to be disappointed if I wasn't. And so that's kind of the mentality I went in with. So when things started to go my way, and halfway through, I could sort of see like, yeah, I'm going to stick with these guys at the top. Like, I might not finish on the podium, but I'm going to be in the top 10 all weekend. I could kind of see that unfolding, and it was exciting and it was fun, but I tried not to let it get to me and let the pressure build. I just was like, sweet, it's where I belong, and just kept throwing down.
Yeah, nice. And then how does that transfer into this year as well? Because obviously you've now got expectations around you, or higher expectations around you. Like I really liked something you said. You said something along the lines of, once you release yourself from the outcome, it becomes a lot easier. And can you talk about that and how that's transferred to this year, whether there's more pressure on you now, and kind of how that's developed?
Yeah, I think there is a little bit. Some people are very casually saying something along the lines of like, oh, I think you're going to do X, Y, Z at the games this year. Just casually believing that I'm going to qualify again. Like, oh, of course you'll qualify. Last year you came first. Which I'm very aware is not the case. If you look, regionals is extremely competitive, and if you aren't 100% ready and extremely fit, and even probably a little bit of luck, you won't make it back to the games. Hopefully I don't need too much luck this year, but so I'm very, there definitely is a little more pressure, but I think I've done a pretty good job of managing that and not letting it affect, what I need to do each day. I think I mentioned in another interview, but I think that when you have sort of a breakout year, or even if you slowly gain success, once you sort of have like a lot of success, at least in this sport, from what I've seen, there's like sort of two paths you can go down that might lead to a bad year. The one path is letting that pressure get to you and, maybe training too much and going, I got to win. And you're training so much that you burn yourself out. And then the other path is, you have this pressure and you sort of believe your own hype too much, to a point where you're going on all these vacations and you're doing like fit trips, and you're maybe not training as hard because you're like, I can skip out on training today. I mean, I came before the games. Like, these guys got nothing on me. You're just kind of like casual, I'll do this photo shoot and I'll go to this thing and I'll do this on I'll just roll through this workout. And, you kind of just like think you're a little too hot for your own to work hard again. And then, you get to a point where you kind of realize like, oh man, like a couple guys have maybe caught up to me because I haven't really been grinding away in the dark and, on my own. And that sort of that tough it out mentality that probably got you there, you just lose sight of that because you think you're famous or something. So I've tried to balance those two, and I think I've done a pretty good job where I still keep pressure on myself, and I still, I still make sure that I train alone, and really push myself internally, but also, enjoy the experiences. Like, I've done photo shoots. I'm not going to say that I haven't done those, but, find that balance between the two and not get sucked into, where I think some other athletes maybe have failed after like a really good year.
Yeah. Can you talk for a bit about training alone as well? Because I know it's a very personal preference, but why that kind of appeals to you?
I find that, I was actually talking about it with someone at work here, and I work in a tech company, and we're starting to, I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of details because, and long story short, we're starting to become a bit of an industry leader in some of the stuff we're doing. And I think part of that is because we're in Kelowna, which, although there's a tech scene here, it's nothing like Silicon Valley or anything. But because we're here, we don't know what everyone else is doing. So we're thinking, oh, surely someone's moving faster than us. So like, let's just keep working. Like, why don't we do that? And then we're moving fast. And sometimes it's like, feels like we're moving slow because, we're like, hey, let's implement this new process. And it takes 2 weeks. We're like, ugh, I can't believe that took 2 weeks. That's like really frustrating. We thought of it, so surely we can just implement it. Whereas no one else is thinking of implementing that, nor if they did, it would take them 2 months, not 2 weeks. And so for me, it's sort of the same with training where, I'm training alone and, I'm not getting wrapped up in what other people are doing as far as like how much they can squat. I'm going in, I'm squatting whatever feels right, with good technique, and then I'm leaving it. But then when it comes to conditioning, let's say I'm doing 20 pull-ups, 20 burpees, 20 thrusters, 3 rounds. If I finish that, or if I'm halfway through, I'm thinking, man, someone out there is going unbroken. Like, surely someone out there can do this whole thing unbroken. Like, I have to go faster, surely. Whereas maybe if I was training with some other regional or games athletes and I was like, 10 reps ahead of them, sweet. Like, this is a good workout for them and I'm already beating them. So I just got to stay ahead of them, and that's a good score. And I've done that before where I've trained with people and I left a workout feeling like, Brent, you would have went faster if you were alone. Like, you got ahead of them, and, I'm a gamer a bit. And so, I might use them as a bit of a pace bunny and just make sure I beat them. Like, sweet, beat you. I've definitely done that. And when I'm alone, I usually finish thinking like, man, I don't know what I could have done differently. And I almost like a little bit of regret, not an unhealthy amount, but just enough like, man, like, I should have, okay, next time. And then that next workout, you think of like the most aggressive strategy and you're like, okay, I'm going to do that twice. And you just, you hit it with that much more vigor. And then when regionals comes around and I start comparing scores to people and I start testing workouts, I have that fear again. And then I talk to my mates and they're like, oh, I did that in 7 minutes. I'm like, oh, sweet. I did it in like 6:30. I thought you were fitter than me, kind of. Yeah. That's why I like training alone, mentally pushing myself. And I think Fraser, Matt Fraser, I think that's kind of why he likes it too. I think I remember hearing something about that, but I know he does most of his training alone, and he's kind of got that like internal, like a bit of fear where he's like, man, someone's going to beat me. And, last year it showed that like no one really did. So yeah, I think that works. It works for some people.
Okay, nice. Can we go for a bit? Like I've like been jotting down notes. And I've got so many questions for you, but I think all we want to go for is so the way I see it, we've got 4 different kind of styles of workout for the mindset side of things. The first one is like going up for single lifts or because we can easily freak ourselves out. So first of all, can we go through, like, do you have any self-talk prior? Do you have a pre-lifting routine? Do you have like special kind of, do you think of cues? Is it, like, what's going on before you lift?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure. Definitely confidence. Usually, I try not to be too, if you watch some videos of me in competition, like before a big lift or even right after, it's definitely, like based on like body language and stuff, the time when I'm going to look the most like cocky or arrogant. I'll kind of puff my chest up a little bit, and, you got to believe like you're the baddest man on the floor. Especially if you're lifting something like around a PR for you, or something that could win the event, something that's, big by CrossFit standards, and so I'll usually have like aggressively relaxed, like, you can't get really tightened up and, tense up too much. But I'll usually think of something like, like you're the baddest man on the floor, you're too strong for this, or, something like really kind of overly cocky and arrogant. Just that like belief, like, this is a joke for you, Brent. Like, just go out there and show them what you're made of. Like, just get this over with. That kind of mentality. Because as soon as you have a little bit of doubt, you're probably not going to lift it. So that's usually how I go into it. And I'll have some cues, right? Depending on the lift, like some cues that work for me, like, like with a snatch, like strong and slow off the floor. Like, don't jerk it off the floor, because if I jerk it, then my hips come up too soon and then I lose position. And then, once I catch it, like grip the bar tight and push up, or just like really small cues. Maybe with the clean, I'll think about being patient in the pull. So just like pushing, keeping my arms straight for as long as I can. And then once I hit the squat, just drive out of the squat as fast as I possibly can. Just simple cues, for everyone. That might be knees out, for someone, or whatever that is. But 1 rep max lifts, I definitely approach with a different mindset than I'm sure some of the other ones you're going to come to. But it's definitely one of arrogance, really. You I definitely kind of pump myself up, and I'm like let's do this. Like, let's finish this off. Yeah, that's
essential. Yeah, that's the common trait I see between everyone. Is that kind of borderline arrogance, and that kind of the things you say to yourself that you wish you weren't saying to yourself, but you are, because it helps you.
Oh yeah, and I'm not like that all the time, but
it helps.
To get that lift, it works for me. Yeah.
If the goal is to lift more weight, it 100% helps. The next kind of area is the kind of lactate threshold, where it is pure intensity, sled work, for example, and it's just start out 100% and see how little from 100% you can go. So it was when that proper suffering hits, when that pain and discomfort kind of embraces you. What's the attempt from there, or what's the self-talk from there?
So with something like that, that's a good question. Because one of the events we have at regionals is like that, event 6. You have to start with an aerodyne. For me, it's going to be a sprint. So I'll be starting with an aerodyne sprint, max effort, basically. Try to get off the bike absolutely as soon as I can, and then just kind of hold on for the rest of the movements, the burpees and the sandbag over the shoulder cleans. I would say just trying to stay calm. Sort of something along the lines of like, it's supposed to hurt, Brent. That's what you're here for. Like, good, there it is. Ta-da. Yeah. And so just like focusing on my breathing, trying to stay like, even, you're going to feel like the world kind of feels like it's spinning a little bit, and you're like losing control, and like certain, parts of your body maybe aren't working like you want them to. Like your legs just feel extremely heavy and you can't seem to pick them up, or your arms, or, you know, you can't seem to do a burpee anymore. Like you can't push up. And so I'll just kind of not always close my eyes, but almost a feeling of closing my eyes and just like, it's okay. Like, you know, that's what you're here for, man. Like, you know, just, you know, like I'll over, you know, if my knees aren't picking up, say in something like a sled sprint, I'll just think about like, Brent, like knee yourself in the chin, like get them as high as you can. They're not going to get as high as what you want them to, but do it anyway. And just sort of like this calm, like almost like a motherly voice, like, it's okay. You're going to be fine. You know, like no matter how much it hurts, when it's done, and you're going to feel fine in a minute or two. Just sort of like, you know, don't be afraid. Don't freak out. Don't stop. Just, you know, this is why you're here. This is kind of the sport you chose, man. Like here you are, like, let's do it. And
go ahead.
Yeah. So I think because those, you know, there's all these like physical responses to the pain. And so if you watch me in those types of events, usually I don't have too much emotion on my face. I'm usually just very calm. I'm not like grimacing and stuff, maybe at the very, very end, because there's no choice. But, you know, because that kind of just doing that sends responses to the rest of you that, you know, you're in a stressful situation. So it's going to increase that. So as much as you can do to sort of calm yourself down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I coach everyone to do, disassociation. And do you ever remind yourself of like the end objective when it gets to that situation? Do you think like, this is why I'm here, this is my why, this is who I am?
No, not too much. You know, I don't know. I know what you mean. And I think that works for some people, and maybe, but like, you know, I've heard sometimes like I'll be in an event, maybe in training, and I'm pushing really hard. Someone will be like, come on, Brent, like this is the point that matters, like to get you to the games. Like this is, you know, work hard. And I kind of like, what are you talking about? Shut up. You know, like I'll hear maybe in the crowd, someone will say that, like, come on, push for gold. And I'm like, eh? Like, it kind of like doesn't throw me off, but it kind of does. I'm just like, what are you, like, what? Because that's not at all what I'm thinking about. You know, I don't, like, I love my fiance, but I never think about her when I'm working out. Like, it's not like, oh, do it for her, or like do it for your kid. I don't have a kid, but, you know, do it for your kid. I think about them when it gets hard. Nah, like, it's not even that. It's just like, it's the task at hand.
Okay.
You know, and it's just the pride in finishing as fast as you can. And just that's my job right now is just finishing whatever it is in front of me. You know, I'm not really like, even, you know, I've had events like the final event of the weekend that, you know, like the fate of the weekend was on that event. And, you know, the fate of the weekend never crossed my mind. It was just the fate of that event. You know, it wasn't like, oh shit, like if I miss this last lift, I won't make the games. Or if I hit this lift quick, I'll make the games. It's very much, you know, not from like it just doesn't cross my mind. Yeah.
Okay. So that kind of brings up the question, what is your why? Do you have a clearly defined why? Do you have a kind of something you're trying to achieve, or is there anything like that?
You know, I don't know. I think a little bit, you know, I like to work hard. I like to achieve my goals. I think that for me, the feeling of satisfaction after working really hard at something for a really long time. I had a coach once say, really the reason he told us this is because he was trying to get us not to party. And he said the parties are best when you save them. And, you know, cause we were partying too much, and it was affecting how good we were at the sport. And I think I kind of, you know, like some of the more memorable moments I have with my friends are when, you know, we won a big competition, right? And we celebrated after, or just like the moment, the direct moment afterwards, or the, you know, maybe the party that night. And the same with CrossFit, you know, like after training for, you know, a couple years and then having like a big weekend, you know, that feeling of elation and joy and pride in a job well done. I think that, you know, I think like life's like short pleasures, like, you know, going out and doing a drug, it's like, yeah, like that feels good, I guess, for some people, but it's not really like the same as, you know, really dedicating yourself to, you know, your education and like finishing your education, which is going to get you a good job. And like that feeling of, wow, I finished my last test. Like, that's awesome. You know, I got out of school, like debt free, you know, those sorts of feelings. And then with CrossFit, just seeing how good I can become and like seeing the progress I've made and like being really proud of the people I've met along the way and the relationships I've made. So just kind of like an overarching, I like to work hard. I think that's part of it too, man. Like I'm just kind of hardwired. Like I feel like more guilt when I have like a lazy weekend than like relaxation, Yeah. Like I don't really get a lot of joy from just like doing nothing. I kind of just have to keep moving, and this is just like an avenue for that love of like working hard.
Yeah, no, I think it shows, not only from what you said, but the way you train as well. And especially that disassociation, switching yourself off from the pain, like being very kind of straight faced. Like look at Lance Armstrong, like obviously validity aside, like look at what he achieved and the way he achieved it. It's exactly the same. It was switch off, and that pissed everyone else off. It was competing around him, which was interesting. Do you reckon there were any influences that gave you that drive and that work ethic, or the ability to switch off from discomfort?
Well, definitely my parents and my coaches. I don't really watch a lot of sports, so I haven't, I don't like draw inspiration from a lot of, like Michael Jordan or something. Like he's sweet, but mostly like coaches. The disassociation probably came from swimming. You have to be pretty relaxed and like really focus, like the technique has to be just exactly the same at the end of the race as the beginning, but obviously at the end of the race, you're in a lot more pain. And so I think that disassociation came from that sport. And then just in general, I had some really good coaches. Like I had some really good volleyball coaches, like my high school volleyball coach, Art Beacheville. We did a lot of mental training. We would kind of sit in a classroom every week or twice a week even. And, as a team, we'd go through mental training exercises. So, learning a lot from them. And then just my parents just instilling, I'm lucky to have great parents. They just instilled really good values in me and, kept my sister and I really busy and, sort of showed us, something of a path of kind of how to live. And I think, I just sort of like was able to take that opportunity and just, kind of instilled like good values, I guess. And just like, work hard for what I do. And just, I don't really worry about too much about, the outcome is just like, kind of trusting that, well, if you just keep working hard, good things will happen. And that's, for the most part, that's usually pretty true. I mean, if you're watching this, you're probably in, a Western country. So odds are if you just work really hard, eventually good things will come your way because, you have clean drinking water and you have the internet, so you'll be fine.
Are there any of the mental training aspects that either stick with you today, like you still use them, or were particularly impactful back then?
A really good one. I don't use it anymore, just because it's not really applicable to our sport. But we would have in volleyball, we'd have a reset button. So volleyball, a play happens, and it usually ends on a mistake. Often, maybe by you or your team, and then you have like 10, 20 seconds, and then the next play starts. And if you let like the mistakes dwell on you, then it kind of compounds, and then you get into a negative space, and you don't play as well. And so we had something called the reset button, and we pretended there was a button on the side of our head, and we would press it, and it was our mental cue, like whatever happened, and often good or bad, but mostly when the bad things happen, you'd have actually like a physical cue where you push the reset button, and that was your way of saying like, it's over, doesn't matter now, like let's focus on the next play. I think that's a really good one, and one for young athletes that could use that. It doesn't really work as much for CrossFit. You can't like miss a lift, and it's not really time for that. But in
between events, definitely.
Yeah, well, yeah, totally right. I don't really use the physical cue anymore, but and the big thing we would talk about in volleyball was controllables and uncontrollables, and the majority of things you get upset about are uncontrollable. It's like a judge's call, a ref's call, something in the past is uncontrollable. The score, how much, all these things. Even the things that are controllable lead to things that are uncontrollable, because the things you could control are now in the past, so now they're uncontrollable. So how are you going to deal with them? So really the only things you control is how you're reacting to things and what you're doing moving forward. And so just kind of, framing your life, but, like if you're in debt or something like that. I've been talking to someone who's, in debt, and it's like, well, I mean, it was a controllable, but now it's an uncontrollable. Like, you're in debt. So it's like, what are you going to do about it? It sucks. Money stress is terrible, but it's like, well, what are you going to do about it? Instead of just like dwelling on the fact that you made all these mistakes.
Yeah. No, that reset button I think is fascinating, and I'd kind of hypothesized that what you've actually done is ingrained its function so well that you can press it quicker than you realize, and that's the whole point of those cues, for them to go from very physical, tactile things to instant. And I think that's probably what you've done quite well.
Yeah,
why you're there. Do you have any meditation practice or anything like that?
Not at the moment, really. Something sort of flirted with the idea. Sometimes I'll do I do some like deep belly breathing before I go to bed, which is actually just more for a physical thing that one of my physios is recommending to just recruit some different muscles and stuff in my abdominal cavity, just for lifting and stuff. But so there's a bit of that, and that kind of leads into a bit of meditation. Not specifically. I mean, sometimes I'll just lie down on the ground, like obviously in the float tank, I'll just calm my mind. And then once I feel like it's calm, I'll just sort of start thinking about like an event, like regionals or something, and sort of just see where my mind wanders to. Back in high school, we would do specific meditation drills where, you would try to control your mind and just see a black room with a light bulb, and all you would see is the light bulb, and you'd turn it on and off. Or, you'd see a chalkboard and you'd write the alphabet on it and see how long it took before the letters kind of disappeared, because obviously it's a pretty complicated board. So just things like that. I don't really do those anymore. It would be nice. I probably should, but at the moment I don't. I don't really have any. I'll sometimes just close my eyes and I often just sort of, if I'm getting stressed, I'll just try to close my eyes and think about like get to the root of why I'm stressed, which is really good in the float tank. But even sometimes at home, I'll just be kind of spinning my wheels and like, all right, Brent, like, settle down. Like, what's bothering you? Is it something you can control? Is it something you can maybe tick something off your to-do list that'll like relieve a lot of stress? For a while that was doing my individual taxes. I think it was just like haunting me in the back of my mind. I'm like, Brent, you just got to get this done. And then when I got it done, there was this huge relief. And I just wasn't addressing that as the main thing. I was thinking it was, I'm mad at this person, or, I'm, frustrated at the weather. It's like, no, it's taxes. Like, this is why you're upset. Get it over with. So just closing my eyes and just like kind of taking stock of where I am, trying to like see myself from outside me instead of just like looking through my eyes type thing.
Are there any resources that have helped you kind of develop that mindset in terms of like, again, it's the disassociation. Like, I know a lot of people were very affected by The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday and like philosophy and things like that. But is there anything that you've found particularly helpful? Maybe books or documentaries or something like that?
I might write that one down. I'll ask you about it after.
Yeah, sure.
Is the way. But I like a lot of the stuff by Joshua Medcalf, like Chop Wood, Carry Water. I want to get into more of, he has some Train to Be Clutch stuff. He has a book called Burn Your Goals. He's got another one coming out called Pound the Stone, which we'll probably get. But I've read Chop Wood, Carry Water twice. And yeah, I love that book. He like listening to him talk, he has a lot of things that just really resonate with me. And he's a book that I got from my coach from high school. So yeah, pretty much everything he does like really resonates with how I want to do stuff. Yeah, so I'd say if there's one thing, it would be that, definitely.
Nice. That sounds good. It's gone on the to buy bit, the to buy list. Sorry,
totally, man. Chop Wood, and it's an easy read. It's like pretty quick. And I have read The Champion's Mind by I can't remember his name. He's a mental training coach that's worked with like Kobe. Yeah, and it's good too. It kind of wanders around a little, but there's some really good tenets in there about entering the flow state. Okay. More so, it's about entering the flow state and how to get there and what it's like. It's not as much like step by steppy as I would like, but it's still good. Still a good book.
Of course. And on the subject of goals, because you mentioned throw your goals. Where was that? Do you have any goals? Do you have specific goals, or is it more of a concept?
More of a concept, I don't have like, I want to win the games. I don't really have that as a goal. I know by now that like, I guess I don't want to set a goal that I don't really have a lot of control over. If Pat Vellner just gets better than me, then he'll just keep beating me, and I just will never win the games, you know, and like I can't control how good he gets. So, you know, I mean, for me, it's like right now with CrossFit, I mean, right now in my life, I sort of have three goals. It's the relationship with my fiance, the pursuing my career here at my job, Straw House Inc., and you know, maximizing my potential in the sport of CrossFit.
Yeah.
So that's really, you know, and those are obviously quite broad. You know, I don't have like a specific, I'm getting married, which is, you know, a goal, but that's not like, you know, it's not like I've got there. So I'm like, sweet, like it's over. Like, I don't have to worry about that
finished.
anymore. It's finished. You know, it's a continual thing. And obviously with the job, it's a continual thing. And then with CrossFit, it's this continuing pursuit of, you know, like last night I met a guy who's really big into some like holistic practices, like recovery with sauna. And so I'm going to look into that, and that might improve my CrossFit thing. And, you know, I'm always just kind of looking for an edge and I'm already a little bit excited about the off season after the games. And I always like reevaluate, okay, like what am I eating? Like, how am I recovering? Like, what kind of mattress am I sleeping on? Like, you know, what supplements am I taking? Am I, you know, like what are my weaknesses? Like, how can we train those again? Like, are we doing enough core work? Are we doing enough shoulder stability work? You know, what do we think's coming? And just like kind of like sharpening the saw and just like continually just like building. And so for me, I just want to continue to see how good I can get at CrossFit. Until I'm like sick of it, which, you know, it doesn't look like that's coming up anytime soon. I'd say definitely another year for sure. But maybe 2, maybe 3. I don't really know. I'll see how that. I think a lot of that will depend on my career and how Claire and I are doing as far as like maybe starting a family and how I can balance all that. But yeah, I don't have a specific goal. In a way, I mean, you know, I kind of have achieved, like I made it to the games, I won regionals. So in a way, like those kind of boxes are very much checked off. I think if I hadn't made the games, I'd be kind of like, yeah, like I kind of need to get that done. And that was kind of what it was like. I was like, you know, you have it in you that you can make it there if things fall into place. So just like get it done, Brent. So that was very much a goal. But now it's just, you know, I mean, continue to make, not that I'm like easing off. If anything, I've ramped everything up. But yeah, just continue to maximize my potential. I mean, it'd be nice to make it to the podium, but at the same time, like, you know, if I kept placing 4th or 5th, I don't think I would like look back in 10 years and look back at it with regret at all. Or if I never made it back, I'd still be like just as proud of 4th as I think I would have been with 3rd. Nice.
Yeah. I love it. I particularly enjoy the fact that your balance between like the health, wealth, love and happiness thing, like across all 4 aspects, You seem to have a kind of goals and drives, which is from a psychological point, just so much more healthy, I think.
Yeah, man. It works, you know. It can be pretty stressful, like trying to balance all those things. And I'm fortunate that each one of them is flexible. You know, like obviously there's times of the year where Claire and I don't get a lot of quality time together. And then there's times of the year where I'm not training as much, but I'm at work more and so on. But it all kind of works out. And, you know, it's the decisions I've made. So it's like, if I get really stressed out, it's like, well, Brent, you chose this. Like you could just quit something if you really were too fed up. And you're like, yeah. Brent, you're right. Like, quit complaining. This is awesome. So
how do you find the balance between work and training?
It's a hard balance. It's really good though. Honestly, most days I usually end the day feeling like, I wish I could have got more done at work than like, I wish I could have trained more. Because the training is usually, you know, my coach gives me the program. I find a way to get it all in. I hit it hard and I'm like, well, I don't need to do anymore. Like I've trusted him that this is what I need for the day. But with work, there's always something, right? It's never done. It's, you know, I've got this to-do list longer than it'll ever be short. And, you know, there's just always things to do. And I love my job and I love what I do here. So the balance is tough. I mean, I'm lucky. I work in a tech company, so, you know, I can get in at 9 and leave at 3 and go train and come back at 7, or I can, you know, work 10 hours one day and 6 the next, or come in at whatever, you know, early, late, whatever. So that makes it really easy. And they know that I'm training for. So, you know, during like, you know, May and July, you know, I'm probably not in the office quite as much, but then like the month after those, I catch up on everything. I get everything done. So yeah, they're pretty cool.
Yeah. And now I'm going to link it back all the way to where we started this this tangent, which was the 4 types of events. The third one is the kind of typical CrossFit domain, i.e., well, if there is a typical CrossFit domain, like the kind of the 6 minutes to 18 minutes or 6 minutes to kind of 15-ish minutes. How do you? Because I think that's the hardest one because there's obviously pacing. You have to pace. There's no just like go for it. And also it is an endurance event, but at the same time, it's not an hour where you have one specific pace and you have multiple movements, obviously. So what's the self-talk like going into that? Obviously, it's dependent on the movements and what it is, but can you talk to me about your approach to that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the events. I'd usually do pretty well on those, especially like a little longer, like the 10 to 18 minute sort of chipper type, movements. Those are the ones I usually do well in. Just going in calm, if your heart rate's jacked up because you're nervous or overexcited or overstimulated, that's like not a good thing at all. And, just not being in a rush. I feel like a lot of people are in a rush. They they bite off too much they can chew. And like, once the heart rate's up, it's not coming back down. So just like, just being very aware and being in tune with what your body's feeling. And, from like and it's something that's hard to teach. I think I'm pretty, I think I started CrossFit and I just kind of knew how to do it. And some people just, you watch them do some workout and you're just like within 2 minutes, they're past the point of no return. And, so for me, I don't know. I mean, the mindset there is just, that's the easiest one for me. Cause you just kind of roll into it, right? You just breathe and just really the big one there is focusing on technique. And, I guess, let's think of a workout. It's, you start with like a, 10 movements, 20 reps of each, 2 rounds or something with a time cap, even if it's say like an 18-minute time cap, 3, 2, 1, go. You just sort of walk forward and you start one. And then, you try to get through it as easily as possible. And you just kind of move on to the next one and just, don't be afraid to stop. But if you do stop, don't stop for very long and just kind of just roll, just stay really calm and just don't look at anyone else and be like very, very in tune with like what you're feeling and like where your heart rate is and like your pump in your forearms and your pump in your quads and, like exactly that point at which you need to stop 2 or 3 reps before failure, rest just enough so you can do another set about the same size and just kind of rinse and repeat and just stay calm. And then near the end, when it starts to get hard and the time cap's getting close, you just put the pedal to the metal.
Nice. And what about the kind of the true endurance events, the very rare occasion you get something that's roughly an hour or 45 minutes?
Yeah. With those, I just focus on breathing very much, breathing and just finding like a breathing rate that I feel like I can maintain for the entire event. If that's swimming, it's like, all right, you're breathing every 5 strokes, which is going to force you to swim a little slower because if you have to breathe every 3, odds are you're using up too much oxygen. Or if you're running, maybe like breathing out every 5 steps and in every 5 steps, and you can't keep that up if you're running fast. So that means you have to speed up your cadence, but not taking very fast steps, which means you're going to be running kind of slow. And just with those events in a competition type environment, just not getting wrapped up in where anyone else is, right? Just completely focusing on your body and your pace and just try to, like the first 20 minutes of that should be pretty easy. So, just kind of enjoying it. And I'll sometimes let my mind wander or I'll do like math. I'll be like, all right, you've ran for 20 minutes, so that's 30 minutes left. And at this pace, you went by this many signposts, so that means you should probably find about this more many signposts, and then you're another 10 minutes in, or whatever markers are along the course. Or if you're rowing, I'll just think, okay, this 100 meters, go a little faster, and the next 100 meters, you're allowed to go another slower. 100 meters is about 11 strokes, so why don't you count down from 11? Just like stupid shit like that to keep disassociation, like you talked about.
No, it's very present at the same time. It's entirely focused on the situation.
Oh,
Yeah, I think so many people want to switch off and like get on with something else. And I think that's the secret of success is not being present, but you're there. And like you said, focusing on the breath, it brings you, it's like meditation. It brings you to where you are right now.
Yeah. It's you're not really focusing on, oh, this is so bad and this is so hard. Like you're focusing on the task and like the future and not as much about like the pain that you're in or like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. But you're very much just focused on elements of what's going to make you successful to finish what you started.
Yeah, of course. Can you talk to me for a tiny bit about the way that, was it 2014 and 15 regionals went down and the process after that of getting back on track and obviously disappointment. And you mentioned that you were kind of just feeling shit about training for a long time.
Yeah. So 2013 was my first year at CrossFit. Really enjoyed it. Went to regionals, came like 6th or 7th. It was a lot of fun, like no regrets. Next year, had a bit of an injury in the off season. And so I moved back home to Canada and I was like, all right, like I'm just going to do my thing, enjoy regionals, like kind of see what happens. Just like go to the new region, meet the boys and figure it out. And I almost made the games that year, which was a really big surprise. I was in a position to make the games. And then on the last event, I failed a bunch of heavy overhead squats, and another guy passed me. So outside looking in, like, oh, he must be depressed. I can't believe he let it slip through his fingers. I didn't really see it that way. I mean, the weekend had went incredibly well. I enjoyed it. I was looking forward to the next year. I was proud of my bronze medal because the top 2 made it that year. And it was like, sweet, like I had no regrets really. And the next year I started to put more pressure on myself. I was like, this is your chance to make the games. Like, you should be good enough now. Like, make it happen. Put a lot of pressure on myself. Had like a really small injury leading into regionals, which was my own fault. And that weighed on me like, oh, Brent, what have you done? What have you done? I don't know if you're going to be able to make it through. So all this stress. And then again, sort of same thing. I was in first, slipped down to second. And then on the last event, I slipped to like 2nd to 7th because everyone was so close. And I just didn't go fast enough on the last event. I hadn't been able to practice it. And it was this like all out sort of barbell clean sprint thing. And I just kind of like waltzed through it instead of just like attacked it. And which was my own fault. And as soon as I finished the event, I knew. I was like, Brent, like, what have you done? Like, I was just sort of in this like autopilot mode. And then I finished. I'm like, Brent, like, why did you go so slow? I don't know, it just kind of happened. Right. And then, the months after, and so I didn't make the games and I felt like I could have, and, had I done things right, I should have. And, it was hard, for a while. I was rolling through training, kind of enjoying it, but like was really kind of depressed, I think. And took me a while to sort of realize that. And I was training, but I wasn't sure if I was going to like still compete at a high level. I like wasn't sure if it was worth it after putting in so much and not reaching my goal. And I just sort of had to reframe and get into the mindset that I'm in now, that it's like, I needed to get to a point where like all the work would be worth it if I didn't make it again. And I needed to get to that place because, at the end of the day, I might put in that work again and not make it again. And I needed to make sure that, that kind of heartbreak wouldn't happen again if I didn't make it. And I'd be like, hey, it was a good year. And I think this year, if I didn't make it, I'd still say, man, this was a great year. Like I'd do it again, even if I didn't make the games. And I need to be in that place. So I talked to one of my old volleyball coaches, and he actually put me on the Joshua Metcalf path and showed me that book. And, I went to him, I said, man, I didn't know this at first, that mindset I was just talking about, but I was like, I want to go in with this like full belief that I'm going to win, coach. Like what should I do? And he just sent me this quote from Joshua Metcalf that like, you don't have control over that. The guy who's going to win is ironically the guy who knows he could fail just as likely as he could win. It's a really good quote from Joshua Metcalf. I was like, oh shit. Like that's exactly what I needed to hear, of course. And so then I read some books by him and just sort of brought myself back into that mindset of the process and, the enjoyment of the process and letting go of the outcome instead of just like being hell-bent on trying to win, trying to qualify. And then sure enough, the next year I won and I qualified.
Yes, man. Sorry, like your mic's being a bit funny at the end. Can you just repeat what you said the last
sorry.
bit? That's all right.
What did I say at the end there? Focusing on, so I started to just focus on the outcome. Or sorry, not the
process. Yeah.
On the process. Yeah. Enjoying the process, enjoying getting better, enjoying, and not just solely focusing on like winning, qualifying. And then with that mindset, I was able to win and qualify. And it was probably that much sweeter because I enjoyed the journey just as much as the success. And then, but I think it's been a really good mindset for me and just a lot more relaxing. It's allowed me to train better. And then I think also perform better because you're not standing on the starting line thinking, I got to win. You're just like, well, my training's led me here and it's time for me to show what I can do. And let's see how good that is compared to these other guys who've been training hard. And cool. Yeah.
I think it affords you a freedom to compete in a flow state and compete without consequence.
That's 100% it. And that's what happened last year. I was in a flow state, like for 7 out of 7 events. It was so cool.
Nice.
I was like, I was obviously in a lot of pain, but I remember one event I was doing these like snatches and kind of a slower paced event, like this 20-minute grind. And I was doing these like kettlebell snatches and I could hear my family cheering for me off to the right up in the stadium. I was doing these snatches with good technique, and I knew how many reps I was on. I was like, oh, I wonder if I should wave to them. No, I shouldn't. And I was just having these these really whimsical little like thoughts mid-event, like all this pressure, and I was just so free to perform and like react and just enjoy the moment that I was having these like little thoughts like that. I remember even another thing. I was like, oh, I wonder if I should try this technique. No, you haven't practiced that. Don't try that. Just like little like crazy. Fun little things, and just like kind of like very aware of what was going on around me. And I could like hear other judges calling out the reps, and I could see my judge, and all the while doing exactly the pace that I needed to do. But, I was so free because I mentally visualized, and I was in this like flow state, very comfortable. Although I was in a lot of pain, it didn't really feel like it. And, it's just able to just kind of like relax through this performance. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Excellent, man. Are there any mantras that you live by, or anything kind of guiding philosophies that you try? And I know we kind of probably touched upon the process-driven side of it. But is there anything that you kind of remind yourself of daily?
I think that changes. Like I have this like a kind of a bulletin board, goal board type thing, and I haven't looked at it in a while, but occasionally I'll write stuff down. Like if there's a certain mindset I find I've been slipping into that I don't like, I'll sort of write something to combat that, and I might read it. Lately I've been fine, so it's just kind of been stagnant since about February. But one that I've been thinking of lately, because I've been busy, a little stressed and just like trying to balance everything, is sort of reminding myself, like, this is a Joshua Medcalf thing, and he's like, you have a choice. Like, these are your choices. You've chosen to try to balance work, your relationship with your fiance, and being a high level athlete. Like, you made these choices. If you want to quit, Brent, there's the door. Like, you can just hang up your sneakers, or you can just walk out the door and quit, or you can just move to Tibet. Like, you have these choices. So just like man up and do what you enjoy, and you love this stuff. So like, do it. It's like, oh yeah. I think that's something I've been reaffirming myself every now and again. Like, oh man, I got too much stuff to do. I'm so busy. Like, Brent, like, you have a choice. You can walk out on all this. You can do whatever the hell you want. You don't have to pay taxes. I mean, there'll be consequences. You'll have to pay them eventually, but you don't have to pay them. You don't have to, you don't have to wait at a red light. You can run it. I mean, you'll probably get hit by a car, but you have that choice. So don't get frustrated by the red light. You could have walked, all these foods, just like kind of this, like, Brent, like, why are you complaining about this? Stop. And then, I get on it, and I'll even have I have this little sticker on my, my computer screen is just like it's like a little graph, like a X, Y, and then just like a line going up, as in like profits going up. Yeah. And it's kind of just this like line to remind me, like that's where that's what you want, Brent. You want to be, you're moving up. Like, what are you doing to make that happen? Just as from a work perspective, making money, but just from like a life perspective, like, what are you doing to get up there? Like that's what you like to do. Like, this is why, that's kind of what drives you, right? Like, you want to be better. So like, just look at that and be like, well, it's your choice. This is your line. Like, just go. So lately that's been my little thing. Yeah.
Do you have any daily routines or daily rituals or anything you do?
It's funny. I think I was talking briefly to someone about this yesterday, and I couldn't put my finger on any, but I'm sure if someone followed me around, they'd be like, gosh, you do a lot of weird shit. Because now they're routines, right? Let's see. I don't know, man. I guess I have a pretty good sleeping routine. So like, before bed, I definitely take a bit of time to just, whether I do those breathing routines, or maybe I'll just like hold a stretch for a while, or I'll just like foam roll my quads or something, just to kind of mellow out, close my eyes, complete darkness, and just try to like, it helps me sleep better. Just to like try to just think about nothing. I'll just, just kind of roll around on the floor, try and cool off, just to help me sleep. I'd say that's one of them. And that just changes based on the day. Like, if I feel like I need to stretch, or I feel like I just need to breathe, or, if sometimes I'll just lie on my back, not in the bed. I'm not really sure why I've decided that, but I'll lie on my floor and just kind of like close my eyes and just like kind of like a pseudo float tank kind of thing. And then when I do go to bed, like, I usually put in earplugs, and it's a completely dark room. I have a face mask if it's still light. So just like focus. I have pretty good sleeps, and I take kind of pride in that. And, I take my time going to bed and brush my teeth and wash my face and all that kind of stuff. Bit of bone broth usually before I go to bed.
Nice.
I mix in some spices and stuff that are like pretty soothing. So I have a pretty good pre-bedtime ritual, because, that's pretty important for, me.
And then on waking, is it just get up and go, or is there a kind of process there as well?
Pretty much get up and go. Yeah. Get up. Probably not that. It's something I kind of want to fix, but I get up, and go, and I'll get a bit of water or something, go to the bathroom, and I'll end up checking my phone for a while, which I need to get rid of that habit, but it's just what I do right now. Check my emails, check to see if I have any messages, check to see if I have any texts, probably check Instagram, and then something I've been meaning to get away from, but I don't know if I will. And then just have a little bite to eat, and then usually go train. So just it's pretty much get up and go. There's not like I don't know. What do you do?
What do I do? I got stuck into the same trap for a while about the checking the phone thing. Like sometimes I'm coaching first thing, but to be honest, I found that, especially working with my clients and my athletes as well, that you can't just get rid of a habit. You have to change it for something else.
Yeah.
So I go straight into meditation now. I go straight into a 10-minute calm meditation, and I just do that because for some reason, having my phone in my hand, it's like, everything's fine. The world's not broken. And then I can I just come in here, go through a meditation if on days that I'm not coaching. Otherwise, I'm up, shower, cycle to the box, and start coaching.
Yeah, I should get going.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's all about routine for me.
Yeah, I might have to. Part of that too. I mean, I use it maybe as an excuse, but we're doing stuff 24/7 at our work. So part of me is like, I got to check my phone to see if there's, and sometimes there is, I'll wake up and I'll miss something. And so the first thing I do is actually deal with that issue. But
there's a fine line. There's a fine line.
Yeah. It's like, can't escape reality too much, but there's maybe getting up, and I don't know. I feel like if I tried to meditate as soon as I wake up, I might just fall back to sleep too.
Yeah, it's having some sort of purpose. As soon as like, okay, this is my structure. Like some people's structure works really well. Otherwise, it's like just like some people, like most of my athletes, they'll get up and they'll do they'll go through basically writing out, like, if this is what I'm going to achieve, these are the things I'm going to do today. And it's very process driven. First thing, it's reminding yourself like why you're there, and it resets that. It's like that reset button. It's this is why I'm here. This is what I'm doing. These are my things. These are my 4 areas to work on. And these are things I'm going to do today, which has all been planned out before.
That's actually, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, cool. I'll show you the process after this if you want. And and what makes a great athlete?
It's a good question. It's something, I was in my home city of Lethbridge, I think over, I want to say Christmas time. Maybe it was a different time. Anyway, I was there, and I got to train at a CrossFit gym with all these Lethbridge College volleyball players. That's the college that I went to play volleyball with, and got to give like a little speech. I hadn't planned too much. And I was looking at these young guys, and I was like, what can I say that would like potentially change? Because, I remember being a high school or college kid, and like I had speakers speak to me that had experienced success or whatever. And like, I don't remember too many of those speeches, and I don't know if any of them really changed my course, my direction. I was like, man, what could I say? And then what does make a good athlete? I mean, I don't know, man. I think people are going to do what people are going to do. And it's kind of like parenting. Like, I've talked to a few people about parenting. It's something I want to be eventually. And, it's like you kind of have to show them the way, and then they just have to kind of find it themselves, like I'll get people messaging me like, hey man, like really into CrossFit, been doing it now for a couple months, want to make regionals. What do you recommend? I'm just like, dude, like, I don't know. Like, I can't tell that to you. Or the better one yet is, hey man, like they're older than me, they're like 30. Like, hey man, I'm 30. How do you balance work and training? Like, I can't seem to do it. And I'm like, I don't know, like, first of all, I'm not a life coach. I'm not your life coach. But it's like, what do you do in a day? Like, write down every single thing you've done in the last 3 days, and anything that doesn't align with your goals, scrap it out tomorrow. Oh, I watched Netflix for 3 hours. I'm like, well, get that out of there, and I'm not perfect either. Like, I'm not, I'm better than a lot of people, but I still waste time. And, I usually the thing is I feel guilty for it, and most people don't. But, I don't know what makes a great athlete, man. It really depends. Cause I guess that's how you define a good athlete, because I would say there's great athletes out there that people know, and they wear their jerseys and they do everything wrong.
Yeah.
Like there definitely are. I mean, I think sometimes, people want to see like an overnight success story. So they see some guy who's just like super chill and he's just talent. He's talent. I can never be that good because he's talent. I mean, there's probably a lot of things that he does that you don't see or used to do that got him there. But then there are guys that, are literally, I don't know if talent's the right word, but they just are just good, man. Like, they can just throw a ball better than anyone else can. And it's just, they can just do it, they can do it now. Maybe it's because they put in the work, but they don't do anything right now. They party, they don't really get up early. They just roll into training. And, like those guys that are just kind of messes on the NBA, and they're just like, man, how are you so good? I don't know, man. I mean, I guess if there's people watching and they want to be a good athlete, you just got to be patient, and you got to be thorough. You got to work hard. And there's all these little tips you can find. But at the end of the day, if you do everything right for a very long period of time and you stay dedicated, you'll get better. That doesn't mean you're going to be the best, but you'll get a lot better. And eventually you might start catching people and being better than people that you never thought you were going to be better than. That's really the only takeaway. But it's like, you don't, if you're starting at 25 and you were never an athlete, you might never understand what it means, the difference between exercising and training. And I've had that conversation. I'm like, well, what's the difference between exercising and training? And there is a difference. And I can't explain it to you. Like I can look at someone and watch them and be like, you're exercising right now, you're not training. And like, but I don't know how to explain it to them. There's this mental change in like an awareness of what you're doing, and like a cognitive ability to like learn from every single like repetition and every single training session, as opposed to just like working hard and sweating. And like, you might like the biomarkers might be the same. Like your heart rate got just as high. And your breathing rate just got just as high as mine, actually probably higher, than when mine does, comparatively to my perceived max. But I learned more from it mentally. And the next time I'll adapt to that. And there's even guys that compete at a high level that I think they still exercise too much. I don't think they train, like at regionals and even the games. And that's why I think I can beat them, is because, but yeah, I mean, take away, if you want to be a good athlete, find a good coach, work hard. Yeah. Just keep working hard. And just, I mean, that's a good thing you can do is at the end of a week, like write down everything you did. And if things aren't aligning to your goals, if you can switch those things that are aligning to your goals, then, you're just spending your time better. Like instead of watching TV, maybe you go for like some sort of active recovery, or like a sauna, or a float for an hour. Oh, I don't have time to float. It's like, would you watch TV? Yeah. Okay. Then you have time to float. Oh, that kind of stuff. Right.
Yeah. Nice. Bang on. I think that's an awesome place to end. I think you nailed it there. Being process driven and training mindfully. But that's nice. Where can people find out a bit more about you and follow you on social media and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I am working on a website. That's just taking longer than I expected. But basically, Instagram's pretty good, which is just at Fikowski. I'm on Facebook as well. I have an athlete page, which is just at B Fikowski, or just look up Brent Fikowski. There's only one of me. Usually there. I'm on Twitter, but Twitter's lame. But yeah, definitely Instagram. I post pretty good content there, and then I'd say those two places are the best place to find me. Drink Zevia, wear Reebok shoes, all that.
Nice. committed brand ambassador.
No, actually Zevia's sweet. I've actually been enjoying one during the podcast.
Good man. Cool. Thank you so much for jumping on the show. Is there anything you'd like to end with, or anything you think you'd like to kind of give to everyone to finish?
I don't know, man. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I know talking to people here, like just I was talking to someone who I know that's kind of in debt, and it's like, he knows what he needs to do. He just can't do it. He knows he shouldn't do X, Y, Z, and that, he knows how long it's going to take, and he knows these things. Like, people are smart, but they're just like unwilling to like make changes. And it's the same thing with diet. Like they know, and they feel a little guilty, but it's that like guilty pleasure. Like, oh yeah, like I don't deserve this, but I'm going to eat it anyway. People know, only how hard you went in that training session. Like, you don't need someone else to tell you that. You don't need a heart rate monitor to tell you that. And so if you really want something, like the people out there that are really getting shit done, like they're the ones that like listen to that voice, and they know, and they're like, yeah, okay, like let's do it. And then you'll feel this greater sense of satisfaction having like committed to that voice, that because now that you're an adult, assuming you're an adult when you're watching this, when you didn't work hard, that you shouldn't be doing certain things, and you shouldn't be spending your money on stupid things, like, and just like listen to that voice and just take control of your life, right? Awesome. Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. Right, man. Thank you so much for an excellent episode.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Alpha Movement Podcast. If you want to hear more, don't forget to subscribe, and whilst you're there, it helps the podcast massively if you can leave a 5-star review. Don't forget to find me, Tom Foxley, or the Alpha Movement on social media, and send myself some feedback. It would be great to hear from you. And if you're pretty much anywhere around Europe, I'll be near you soon, holding a seminar. And if you are a box owner looking to have a Mindset RX seminar near you or in your box, shoot me up, tom@alphamovement.co, and I'll be back in your ears soon for another episode of the Alpha Movement Podcast.